Welcome to ACPS Families and Students. Thank you for joining us. In order to ensure that all are able to access this presentation in their preferred language, we are providing simultaneous interpretation in Spanish, Amharic, and Arabic today. After the interpreters have provided their instructions, please press the globe icon that will appear at the bottom of your computer screen and select your preferred language. If you are watching on a phone, press the three dots at the bottom right of your screen and then select your preferred language. Thank you. Now, I'd like for our interpreters to give instructions, starting with Spanish, then Amharic, then Arabic.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a nuestra presentación. En esta reunión provee traducción simultánea en español y en árabe. Si usted quiere escuchar esta presentación en español, por favor cliquen en el globo en la parte de abajo de la pantalla y seleccionen español. Y si están utilizando un teléfono celular, entonces seleccionen los 3 puntos en la pantalla y seleccionen el lenguaje que ustedes prefieren, en este caso español.
ጤና ይስጥልኝ እንኳን ደህና መጣችሁ። ዝግጅቱን በአማርኛ ቋንቋ እንዲተረጎምላችሁ ወይም በአማርኛ ቋንቋ መከታተል ለምትፈልጉ በስክሪኑ ከታች አካባቢ በመሐከል ግሎብ የሚል አለ። እዛ ላይ ይጫኑና አማርኛ ወይም አምሃሪክ የሚለውን ምረጡ። በአማርኛ ቋንቋ ለመከታተል ከፈለጋችሁ በስልክ የተከታተላችሁ ከሆነ ደግሞ ከታች አካባቢ 3 ነጥቦች አሉ ዳትና እዛ ጋር ሂዱና ቋንቋ በሚለው ቦታ አማርኛ ብላችሁ ምረጡ። ከዛ ትርጉሙ በቀጥታ መከታተል ትችላላችሁ በአማርኛ። እንኳን ደህና መጣችሁ። አመሰግናለሁ።
مرحبا، أنا مترجم اللغة العربية للاستماع إلى الترجمة الفورية باللغة العربية لهذه المحادثة. يرجى اختيار مربع الكرة الأرضية الموجود في أسفل الشاشة واختيار اللغة العربية. وللاستماع إلى الترجمة إذا كنت تشاهد عبر التليفون اضغط على ال3 نقاط الموجودة في شاشة التليفون واختار اللغة العربية. شكرا.
Thank you. Now we welcome the Honorable Jacinta Green from our school board, who will be acting as moderator this evening, who will introduce our hosts and panelists.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein and interpreters. Welcome everyone to the 3rd installment of the Identity Project Student Conversations, where we are going, our future. And our future is sure to be bright. And you will find this to be true as you hear from our student panelists tonight, and also with the students that are coming up behind them as well as they enter into TC. My name is Jacinta Green, a proud member of the Alexandria City School Board, and I'm more than excited to be with you this evening. Our students in Alexandria City Public Schools inspire me to work harder each and every day to advocate for their future by providing the best and most equitable education possible for them. And we consider it of the utmost importance to include them in the process that involves them. As we move forward this evening, I will give you an overview of how the session will run. Questions will be asked of each panelist, and they will be given 3 to 5 minutes to answer. And then we will have questions asked by participants for each question as well. Our superintendent and TC Titan alum, Dr. Gregory C. Hutchings Jr., is with us today on the call. And I will get him to say hello. And then at the end of the call, we'll have him to give remarks. Dr. Hutchings.
Thank you, Ms. Green. I just wanted to say hello to everyone. I'm looking forward to our discussion today. I know that you all are going to be able to speak your truth and also just speak from your experiences. So I'm looking forward to hearing and learning from you. Thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you, Dr. Hutchings. And now I'd like to introduce our student panelists. First, we have Lorraine Johnson, who is an amazing student member of the Alexandria City School Board. She is our rep, along with Ashley Sanchez Villafaro, who is not able to be with us this evening. And we just want to thank them for all of the work that they have done around this process thus far. Next, we have Sarah Devendorf. Sarah is a TC Titan, and she is an intern for Alexandria City Councilman John Chapman. Third, we have Miss Miracle Gross, who serves as secretary for the TC class of 2023. And then last but not least, Miss Yanni Marie Sanger. And Yanni is a member of the TC Young Democrats and the Black Student Union. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for your service to our beloved high school and our community. And right now, I'd like to open it up to Lorraine to say hello. Lorraine. Okay, we'll give Lorraine a few seconds. Lorraine is muted. There she is. Lorraine, are you there now?
Yes, can you hear?
Yes, we have you.
Okay, good. I'm sharing my screen as well with the presentation and everything, and I just had to switch back real quick. But I wanted to just say thank you for all the students who are here to share your voice. It is so important and it is crucial that you share your voice with administrators and all the people in charge, because we do deserve to be in on these conversations. And I'm just so glad that you're here with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Okay, well, we will get started with our first question. Thank you so much. Question number 1. If you were envisioning the connected high school, what should the ideal high school experience be for future Titans? And who would like to go first?
I can go.
Great, thank you, Miracle.
So a new connected high school, physically, students should not be separated from other students because of the classes they take. The hallways would only be separated based on teams. So I just wanted to emphasize that. But more importantly to me, the mental health of students would also be supported by staff and faculty. Mental health is always important, not just during Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health isn't a trend, and someone's mental health can greatly affect the way they function. Sometimes when we get overwhelmed, we tend to shy away from our emotions, or we don't express them in the most proper ways. And as said previously, this can affect how we function socially and academically. So I believe that we should have mindfulness rooms, which would be areas where students and/or staff can take a mental break. The rooms would have a counselor, psychologist, or a mentor, because mental health is extremely important, especially during these stressful times. Therefore, I believe it's essential that we not only take care of ourselves, but take care of each other. Furthermore, students and staff should be educated on the symptoms of mental health, but also on the effects and ways we can help, because it's just as important to know how to help someone as it is to know the symptoms. With that being said, there should be access to more than one school psychologist. School psychologists play a very significant role, and since our student body is fairly large, there should be a number of them. Everyone should feel heard and understood, and students should be encouraged to reach out for help and not stop until they get the help that they need. Lastly, a new connected high school should genuinely be connected, and there should be a connection between the students and the faculty. If students have an issue, a question, idea, or concern, they should be able to reach out to staff and feel heard and understood. Students should work with staff, never against them, and student opinions and ideas should not only be encouraged, but listened to and try to apply them. No student should feel neglected. The school shouldn't be based on only administrative decisions, nor should they be based on only student decisions, because if we work together, we can make some beautiful things happen.
Thank you so much for those comments, Miracle. And we indeed want to make beautiful things happen. Thank you. Lorraine, would you like to go next?
Sure, I figured out the mute situation. So yeah, as a member of the focus group, originally for the high school project, I know the possibilities that were imagined in the first phases of the high school project and the process of that. And I looked over the layout and the plan for the Connected High School, and I knew that our students could achieve more than they could imagine in the Connected High School. ACPS has land in Crystal City, right alongside with like Amazon and Virginia Tech, and we have so many opportunities to be able to work with these partners that ACPS has, and therefore I would like to see students become more engaged with those types of programs and our ACPS partners like Amazon and Virginia Tech to create real world experiences that could lead to project-based type of learning, which is like what I think most students really engage more in, like virtual visual learners and everything. And I would love to see students having those internships and interacting with the community partners in ways that can truly prepare them for the world and the work ahead of them. And we may be one of the first people, or maybe one of the first people in the region or school in the region to do something like this, or it hasn't really been done that often. But I think that we have to think about this situation futuristically, and the Connected High School is the future in this situation.
All right, thank you, Lorraine. And Sarah, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. So when I think of the new Connected High School and a new unified high school, the ideal high school experience, I think of the ideal high school experience for all students in terms of opportunities provided. And for when I think of that, it starts with the elementary school's TAG program and reevaluating that program. I believe that when you, going back to what Miracle said, when you look at the more advanced high school level classes such as AP, DE, and honors, making sure that those classes are diverse, I feel that we can take a look at the TAG program and how that feeds into those classes, because the kids that are and the students that are often in the TAG programs that are in elementary school are often the ones that are fed into those higher level classes later on and when they get to high school. I was never in the TAG program. However, I know the experiences of my fellow peers and family members and friends that were, and it seems that that program has moved away from taking into account a student's academic achievements and merit, and has more taken in economic and cultural background. And I don't agree that minority students have fair representation in the TAG programs. And that's a shame, because that program kind of sets you down a path of higher level classes and connection with teachers, and then more opportunities, like Lorraine said, with the new Connected High School, taking advantage of those opportunities. And so even besides the more tangible resources and academic help that higher level classes provide, it's also, there seems to be a sense of exclusion from those classes, from their white peers, due to the TAG program, and told that they're simply not gifted enough, not talented enough to succeed in those higher level classes. And it's become clear to me that white students have benefited from the sort of harmful treatment of their minority peers, including myself, since I do take more higher level classes that I'm mentioning. And if we want to imagine a more unified and more connected TC, as well as even a more unified school district, I would seriously recommend reevaluating the TAG programs, and so that we can find those inequalities shown more in the high school when white students are given pats on the back and then minority students are not.
Thank you for those words, Sarah. And now, last but not least, Yanni Marie for this first question.
Yes, okay. Just what Sarah said was very accurate, and I would just like to continue down that narrative of racial equity in our school system with this Connect-It TC. So as someone who was in the TAG program since elementary school, everything she said was true. Even when students are allowed into those programs, the way that they are treated is it is not equal or even equitable to their white peers. So the patronizing mentality, the microaggressions, and just the doubt as for whether or not you belong in that space needs to disappear. It's not just getting in, it's how we're treated when we're in there. In addition to that, in order to have a Connect-It TC, as Sarah said, and Lorraine, it must be for all students. So we have a diverse student population, but currently what we are seeing in representation and what we're seeing in who is accounted for and benefited by the system is not equal to the true makeup of our school. This goes into our suspension rates, which are disproportionately high for Hispanic or Latinx and Black students. And it also goes into just the way that we treat racial incidents in our school system. So as someone who's Black and has gone through certain things with teachers, these teachers were not fired, and taking it to a higher level was extremely difficult. Being believed itself was very difficult. So if we are looking at a Connect-It TC, it must listen to our student population. So if we are looking at a Connect-It TC, we need to listen to our student population, and not only those who are compelled to speak up, but give the power to those who don't necessarily know because they've been disenfranchised since youth, that their voices are just as important as those of their white counterparts. And listening to the student body, not just those who can show up to these Zooms, but those who, probably don't even know this is happening, who are heavily affected by these topics, is what we need in order to have a connected school system. So this is like the first step in a series of policy and practices that must occur in order to have an equitable, TC and school system that benefits all students.
Thank you, Yanni Marie. Just like I said, everyone, our future is very bright here at TC. Wonderful thoughts and comments, ladies. So we will now open the chat to see if anyone has any comments or questions about this first question. You may raise your hand, or you may place a question in the comment in the chat. All right. I am not seeing any questions, but that is okay. Please continue to, at any time, you may put a comment or a question in the chat, and we would be happy to acknowledge you. With that, we will move on to our second question. Question number 2. The Identity Project homepage reads, while we still have work to do inside our schools, the school's name does not align with who we are as a community. What should the new name say about who we are as a community? And I will start off this time with Sarah.
So I certainly believe that T.C. Williams as a name and as a person does not represent the student body, and it does not represent our community of Alexandria. We are a very diverse set of students with a variety of backgrounds, upbringings, and beliefs. And I believe that the new name should reflect that by it being a minority voice, hopefully, and someone or an individual that has contributed to our community in a positive and uplifting way. My personal favorite that I've heard recently is Judge Nolan B. Dawkins, just because he has such a history in Alexandria and has really been fighting for many, many citizens of Alexandria since he began working for the city. However, I know that we're not there yet. We're not ready to actually choose a name, but I believe that it should be someone that has a connection to our home city and someone that represents the values that we as students do, which is diversity and inclusion and opportunities for all and uplifting one another, not tearing each other down, which I believe the name T.C. Williams does represent. So the sooner that we get that name change, the better it will be for all of us, but especially our minority students and minority peers that deserve so much better than the name that's currently representing the school that they go to.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And next we'll move on to Miracle.
As Sarah said, T.C. Williams does not reflect our school community either. I believe that T.C. Williams is a name that hides students' voices, especially minorities, because it's discriminatory. And as a school community, it's very apparent that we are extremely diverse. We have students and staff of many different races, religions, ethnicities, beliefs, and morals. Therefore, inclusivity is extremely important, and the name of the school should reflect this. The school's name should not be based off of anything or anyone who advocates discrimination against a specific group of people based on race, religion, etc. I personally have heard my fair share of other student stories, and I've experienced my own share of discrimination within school, socially and academically. No one should ever feel left out or as if they don't belong, and no name should reflect people being excluded based on their skin color. The school name should represent a safe place for everyone. It should reflect a space of collaboration, engagement, and it should be based off of someone or something who is inclusive and not discriminatory. For example, if the school was to be named Ruth Bader Ginsburg High School, who is a late Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, and she spent much time fighting for women's rights and gender equality. So her name itself reflects equality and justice for everyone. We do have a lot of work to do inside the school, and a lot of chains need to be broken.
Thank you, Miracle. Now moving on to Yanni Marie.
Yes, so as you know, Miracle and Sarah said, a new name would have to be indicative of someone who has helped the diversity of our student population. So as we are not only reflecting Alexandria school system, rather Alexandria as a community, we must reject both overt racism and the casual racism which still persists today. So in this name change, although of course we're not at the stage where we're really listing, specific figures, I think that someone who has not only aimed to benefit a specific group or someone who has rather worked towards equity and equality in general would be preferable. Someone who does not allow casual racism to persist would be preferable. Our name currently does not reflect our student population. Our student population is focused on a mentality that everyone not only is equal, but that not only equality is warranted and a human right for everyone, but rather that equality should be celebrated, as is difference of culture. So something that is, people are saying to share my video shared. So something that is simultaneously celebrative of culture, celebrative of change, celebrative of a continuously progressive and singular and stationary identity would be preferable. So I think a new name should both reflect our difference of culture, the sort of blending and appreciation at TC, as well as progress, which is us changing the name. And of course, there's progress being made inside the school. This is but like the first step, a more symbolic step of the journey that is ahead. And that journey will obviously be more policy oriented and require a lot of revision and just a complete re-looking at how we have practiced for many years. But a new name would only set the framework for this to occur.
Thank you, Yanni Marie. And now Lorraine.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Miracle and Yanni and Sarah. I think that, well, for me as Titans, I know that we pride ourselves on diversity, like Sarah said, and we are one of the most diverse high schools in the state of Virginia. And in my opinion, diversity is what turns good discussions into great discussions, and good organizations into great organizations, good schools into great schools, like our schools today. And I think the new name should definitely highlight diversity over anything, because that's the number one thing that we pride ourselves on. And I've heard some people say that the school should be named after someone, but I also heard like ideas about it doesn't have to be specifically someone, but named after something like a symbol or an adjective or a value that we have as Titans. The possibilities are endless in this situation. We have the opportunity to rename it anything we want, but it's the fact that the whole community of Alexandria has to be involved in this, and they definitely should be involved in this process, because it's going to be something that is here to stay after this. So yes, I definitely think that. And I think the question is like, whether it matters if the high school is named after a person or something, or if that would matter to the community or anything like that. So yeah, I think that would be the next step too.
Okay, now we would like to open it up to comments or questions from our participants. Right, I'm not seeing any questions. I'll give it a couple more seconds. Please either raise your hand or put a comment in the chat section. We would love to hear from you. All right, still not seeing any. Lorraine, I will turn it over to you. I believe you have some additional questions.
I just wanted to ask the panel like what they think on the matter. If the board decides to go through the renaming process and rename the school, do you think that it should be named after someone or something, like a value or a symbol or something like that? Are you leaning towards any, if it should be someone or something?
I do think it should be named after a someone, unless we can find a something. I am either leaning towards Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Martin Luther King, because they both stood for equality and justice and inclusivity. And that is extremely important, as we said previously, since the school is so diverse. But anyone who stood and had morals based on inclusivity would be fine for me. But it couldn't be anyone who advocates discrimination against students based on religion, race, ethnicities, beliefs, morals, etc.
Oh, sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
So for me, I would definitely say it should be named after a someone, because in my opinion, if we change the name of our school to Alexandria High School, or if we keep the initials TC and change it to another name, the pain of having the name TC Williams represent us is still going to be evident in those situations. I think that if we replace the name entirely with someone new that has really contributed to a diverse community in their own right, then that will show steps going forward and steps in the process to make our school and our school district more equal, and provide justice for those who have had to learn under the name T.C. Williams since our school was established. So that's just my outlook on it. I think that we need to take that extra step and name it after someone that reflects our values, as opposed to just getting rid of the name and ending it there. I think there needs to be a larger conversation.
I agree with Sarah, and I think that going into that, for me, of course, I think I agree it should be someone, because it kind of doesn't shift the focus as to we're just renaming it, rather we're committed to making that change. And with that, because Thomas Chamberlain Williams, the controversy is because of segregation, me personally, I would strongly advocate for it being someone who has worked in like Black African-American civil rights. Someone like John Lewis, who recently passed, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, someone like that. I think that would be a pretty good tonal shift as to where we're going as a school. Although there's like a bunch of other icons, I think that someone who is specifically focused on that sort of advocacy would be a good message to send, because that was the opposite of what it was sending previously.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I definitely appreciate that feedback, because the question has been coming up like for a long time in different conversations that I've had, and I definitely agree. I think that Alexandria has really been brought up on different things, like how most of the street names are named after Confederate soldiers, and the question is if we should rename them or not. And I always like say that I understand that you can't what am I trying to say? I understand that you can't erase history, but I definitely think, like I always say, I definitely think that we can change the narrative. And if we change it to, I'm not picky over if we should change it to someone or something. I just want to make sure that whatever it's changed to, it highlights the values that we have as Titans. We value diversity and about our history, how we were at first named TC, which was a segregationist and stuff. And maybe it's time to name it after someone who did the complete opposite and was like on the right side of history. So I definitely agree with that.
Okay. Any thoughts or comments from attendees, either on chat or by raising your hand? Okay. Very quiet on the comment side tonight, Lorraine.
Yeah, I see. But I could bring something up. Earlier, Sarah, you said something, you talked a lot about the TAG program and how the TAG program has been like really disadvantaging, you said, to minorities, and about how a lot about the TAG program. So where would like the panelists see the TAG program in the future? Where do you hope to see the TAG program being in the future?
I think that having a test as Black and white taken at a very young age is very disadvantaging to multiple groups. I don't think that should be the method of evaluation into a program like that. In addition, if we are going to carry out a TAG program, if that would be something to stay persistent, which I think it most likely would, it should not come at the disadvantage of regular classes. There should be no talk of hating your non-advanced classes. That should not occur. I also think that using it as a prerequisite is inappropriate because these tests occur at such a young age. And I think regular evaluation and lack of not permitting someone into these sort of classes due to that experience would also have to be abolished. So we're looking at, if we can't look at abolition, I think that we're looking at major reform, especially as to age and like when you get into it and who is allowed to participate in it. And I think that the standardized testing as a means to get into TAG rather than individualized, which may seem more easily correctable because we have racist teachers, but that would have to be dealt with. I think that's something that could greatly improve the heinous disparities that we are currently dealing with.
I definitely agree with what you said. I believe that there should be no reason why we should test elementary schoolers for something as serious as what develops over time getting into high school with those higher level APs. I know that for the math side of the TAG program, if you are admitted into the TAG program for math, then you're one math ahead of everybody else. And then that translates into a student taking AP Calc, for example, and AP Math 1 year before their other peers. And that just seems like a massive oversight, I think. When it comes to the TAG program, I don't think that that type of separation should occur so early. I could see it maybe happening in middle school when you're already taking honors courses, but the TAG program itself in elementary school, I do not agree with. I think that if we don't completely get rid of it, some major reform needs to be done from all sides of the issue. I think that there are some major systemic issues that start there. That's just one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up, was because I think that the majority of the issues seen in our high school today academically and in terms of racial segregation can be brought back to elementary school. But yeah, thank you.
I do agree with both Yahani and Sarah. I myself am in the TAG program, and I was tested in the 2nd grade, which I believe it is inappropriate to test for a class that you will be taking throughout your whole high school year. The tests that we take as like ages 7 and 8 should not determine the rest of our high school career or what classes we take. Also, the TAG program is clearly discriminatory, and it really does advocate segregation. While I wasn't in the TAG program, as I said, I got admitted in the 2nd grade in the late spring, while my peers were admitted in the early fall. So there is a way of segregation when you see your peers leave the room and you're stuck in the room, and majority of the students in TAGs are white students. So it really does form a way of segregation. I think that is completely inappropriate, especially at such a young age. I think if we do not abolish the TAG program, as Yahani said, it should most definitely be reformed, and we should have testing or evaluation yearly. That could be during the summer at the beginning of the year, but it is not fair for 7 and 8-year-olds to be tested, and then that evaluation determines the classes that they take when they are high school sophomores, freshmen, juniors, and seniors.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that, I don't know, I just know that there has to be some sort of reform for the TAG program. Some people say that we should end it like completely, like just take the TAG program out completely. But I've also heard ideas like we should keep the TAG program, but just make sure that it's diverse and that we're being fair when we're testing kids. And also they talked about like the style of just, I forgot how they word it, but basically to not pull the TAG kids out, but keep them in the classroom and engage like other students and stuff, which I think is a better idea. But still, like, the point is that people in the TAG program, it's not a whole thing where the minorities have to. It's not an issue where the minority children are just there to see the TAG kids walking out. It's the fact that there's not a lot of people that look like them in the TAG programs, and they can see that when you take those handful of kids out of the classroom, they can see that. And the problem doesn't lie in taking them out or keeping them in the classroom. It's the fact that we have to diversify this program. I've heard about the Young Scholars program in elementary schools, and heard like that program is more diverse and it's really building up young students to participate, and it's really teaching them different ways of leadership and everything. And I think that we need to start just diversifying the TAG program. And if we can't seem to do that, then we have to look at alternative ways and maybe take it out completely. But yeah.
Lorraine, I forgot to bring up one thing. Can I about the tag program? Can I say that now? Okay, and then I heard her mentioning this. So another thing is like for the students who are in tag, when they walk out that classroom, that is building from a very young age a complex of superiority over the kids who aren't with them. So when we're talking about how those microaggressive tendencies build and how those exceptionism mentalities and like casual racism in our school system, when we're talking about that, we're seeing how from that very young age, when you're seeing I'm in this one room, you're in the other, and we have segregation there, on both sides, it has one group thinking, okay, I can't succeed, and the other group thinking I'm superior to them. So in the TAG program, that's another thing, just amongst very young children, it's teaching them these associations, which is very harmful later on.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's just a fact. The students see what you're doing, and there's no other way for you to cover it up or for you to make it seem like less visible. There's something that has to be done. I know that sometimes I was a kid, I was like one of those elementary school students once who didn't get pulled into those groups, but I knew exactly what the groups were, even though teachers may try to sneak like the kids out or just try and be discreet about it, but the students know, the kids know, and we can't just act like they're not paying attention or they're not knowing, because they do know. They know almost everything. They know more than you can imagine. And I think that that's definitely important and needs to be taken in consideration when we're having these discussions and everything. Miracle, you said in the beginning about how we need to make mental health a priority in the next 5 years, or in this high school project and the renaming process and everything, and what you want to see in the connected high school. Could you tell us, like, what do you mean by like areas of mental health that you think we need to prioritize in our school counseling and stuff like that?
I think it'd be very important to just check on students, because as I said previously, mental health can affect the way that we function. So specific areas include, I know we do talk a lot, counselors do talk a lot about the symptoms of depression, but depression isn't the only mental illness. You have bipolar depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, you have personality disorders, and it's very significant and extremely important that everyone is aware of all the symptoms, not just the symptoms for depression. Depression is very important also, but mental health and mental illness is such a broad, there's just so much to look at. And I think each mental illness is just as equally important. Therefore, we should look at all of them instead of just focusing on one that occurs in students more often, or just focusing on depression because of statistics, and depression occurs in many students, and depression is the one that affects a lot of students, because there are other mental illnesses and they should get the same attention as the ones that we focus on now. I think we should also have many more counselors, and the counseling department should reach out to students more and check on students more. And we should have access to counselors and school psychologists, because I know not a lot of students know about those resources. And it's very important that we know about the resources that we have so that we can use them effectively.
Great, thank you. Any more thoughts on that, on mental health?
I could kind of respond to that. I definitely agree with Miracle, and especially during this time, like with COVID-19, I think that when implementing this reopening plan, we also have to think about the different counseling, the counseling that the students are going to need when they come back to school, because COVID-19 has really taken a toll on people's mental health and their emotions. And I think that ACPS really needs to prepare for that as well. Of course, there's many other things that go into the reopening process, but I think we definitely need to take mental health serious, because depression is a real thing, grief is a real thing, and anxiety is a real thing, and people have been feeling really anxious throughout this time. And especially because one of my childhood friends committed suicide in the beginning of COVID, and they went to TC and everything. Some of you might know her and know the situation, but I think that being quarantined, like just staying inside and not being able to have that connection with everybody else, it really does something to you. And I think that it's important that not only the students reach out to each other, but people, their counselors, their teachers reach out to them and make sure that they're okay, because some people are just not okay. And even before COVID, we walk in the halls, we never know each other's situation. We don't know what's going on in each other's lives, but still, you still had people around you. So you still had so many good things, but so many good things that we had are taken from us at this time. And I think that, just like Mira said, we really need to do some deep thinking about how we're going to handle our counseling and our resource centers to really talk about that.
Yes, Yanni Marie.
Regarding the conversation of mental health as well, that needs to be intersectional, because what's called mental health in white students is called behavioral issues in Black, Indigenous, people of color students. So I think when we go into that, we need to really start looking at the effect of having a racist teacher and faculty and not listening to students who report that, because again, oftentimes, it's a problem that affects everyone, but oftentimes, especially non-white students, are not evaluated with the same sort of empathy or view as their white counterparts. So I think that that's something that also needs to be looked into.
Okay, thank you. Well, a couple questions have come over on the chat. First one, what role do you think equity should play in the decision to create a school district that will meet the needs of all students? What role do you think equity should play in the decision to create a school district that will meet the needs of all students? Lorraine, I'll get you to take that one first.
Great. I think that, like, of course, ever since Dr. Hutchings became our superintendent, he has emphasized and redefined and everything when it comes to equity, and how equity is not equality. Equity is making sure that everybody gets to the same goal and is on the same level without giving people an advantage, without giving students who don't need one an advantage in everything. So I think that equity plays a huge role in every process, because because not all students are the same, and we can't keep teaching like all students are the same. We can't keep advising like all students are the same, because all students aren't the same. They don't learn the same. Everybody learns differently. So I think that equity plays a huge role in all of these processes.
Anyone else? Yanni Marie?
Sure. As per equity, I think that we need to not only look at it from a school perspective, but also from what students go through at home. Like, it's undeniable that there's a wealth gap in Alexandria, one that's also often adjacent with race. And when we're looking at equity for students, and also there's like equity for students with disabilities and a lot of other factors which must be accounted for. But I think that when we look at equity, we need to also look at student perception of it. We can't continue changing policy and then having what the staff and teachers do counteract that policy. So if students are still met with racism by their peers, that needs to be taken seriously. That needs to be taken into account when we're looking at behavioral incidents. We can't look past it in any occasion. There should be no situation where we are ignoring that in favor of something else, because that is, it has to be our #1 goal, because that's what keeps every student thriving, which is obviously our goal with this. So I think that that should really be placed both socially and policy-wise first when we go into how we're implementing these policies. Renaming the schools only a start. So when we're looking at equity, that goes into how students are treated in class, more like that's equal, but how we treat teachers when they're involved in incidents like this, It doesn't just end at writing policy. We need to really make sure that it's being executed in our schools and listen to the students who will obviously be experiencing it.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, next question over the chat. How do we engage students as we progress into the future? Any ideas for student engagement? Also, what can students do to encourage each other to take an active role in the decision-making process?
I can start with that one. So I have found that there is a lot of success in student-run organizations and clubs within TC Williams. For example, Students for Renaming TC Williams is now a club that is up and running and is looking for new members where we discuss this issue all the time and try and encourage the adult authorities around us to really look into getting the name changed as soon as possible. But other than that, students can be engaged online on social media, since that is basically all we have right now, is connection via screens. But I think that I'm very proud of my peers for taking that challenge head on and really using that to our advantage and not being afraid of making connections online. And I think that people have really thrived under these conditions when it comes to reaching out to new people and having these hard conversations in a way that we're not actually allowed to be near each other. So I would say I would recommend getting involved in clubs and organizations, as well as reaching out to others online and asking questions and finding others that share similar interests in these same causes, because if that doesn't happen, then there's no way that we can get these hard questions answered and these policies enacted. We need student engagement. And I think that's why having a central, sorry, my phone is ringing. I was not done anyway, so.
Yeah, I can speak kind of to that. I definitely agree with Sarah. My top thing is definitely social media. I know that some adults can't really contact students through social media and stuff, but that's how the social media is how the students really engage with each other. That's the number one resource that we use. But I definitely think that teachers can also play a bigger role than they think in student engagement. If you see a student who is very active in their Socratic seminars, in their class discussions, I think that teachers should be able to maybe tell the student, oh, stay back with me after class. I really think that you should get involved in this renaming TC club, or this Black Student Union, or what other clubs we have. I know that we have some sort of, or last year at least, we had some sort of video game club. If the student just can't stop talking about video games, we had a video game club. We also had a Mario Kart club. And I think at TC, we have opened up so many opportunities. Students have no problem creating or leading new clubs. And I think that we've made it so that you can have a club for anybody. Anybody can belong. That really shows that students know that anybody can belong, and there's a place for anyone to do anything. And if you understand what I mean. And yeah, I definitely agree. I think that we know our power, and we've created a lot of clubs that can cater to different students and their different interests and everything. So I think that teachers and adults can definitely step up and say, hey, I think you would be great at this. I think you would do great at that, because that can really change how somebody thinks about themselves. Oh, I'm great enough to be in a club like this. My teacher said, or my administrator said, or an adult told me that I'm good enough to do this, or that I should join this. That'll make them think about it. Whether they join or not, that'll somehow influence them. So I think that teachers and adults have more influence over engaging students more than they think. I think that they can definitely, even if they just try, even if they just say, oh, you can do this, and oh, you can do that, or you should join this, that tells them something, and that motivates them to think about joining. So yeah, I agree with Sarah, and I think that social media and interacting in clubs and everything would be good.
I just also have something really quick to say. I think students should be allowed to hold more leadership positions that allow them to work along faculty and staff and the school board. I know we have Lorraine and Ashley who work with the school board now. I personally was a part of the, I was in the superintendent council club last year, and that allowed me to work with the superintendent and other faculty. And I just think that student engagement is extremely important. And now, since we're in a virtual world, the only way for us to reach out is through social media, which is one of the best ways. I would just recommend making sure that every student knows the opportunities they have. As Lorraine said, if teachers or staff or counselors think that a student is right for something, to let them know about it, because it seems as if minority students don't know about or they don't recognize as many opportunities as white students. And I think it's very important for every student to know about all the opportunities and resources that they have to work alongside staff and faculty.
Thank you, ladies. All right, now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Hutchings for remarks, and then it'll come back to me to close us out. Thank you.
So one, thank you, Ms. Green, for facilitating this session. I just want to say it is so refreshing to hear our young people speak like this and talk about our future. You know, I just truly believe that we are headed in the right direction. If we just get out of the way of this generation, this world is definitely going to be a better place. So I just want to thank each and every one of our panelists today for just speaking to your experiences and your truth, as well as your wisdom that you shared. I am so inspired just by each and every one of you. And I truly believe that the student voice is what's going to make Alexandria City Public Schools not only a better place today, but also for generations to come. So thank you all for serving on this panel. Thank you, Ms. Green, for being such a wonderful facilitator. I know that you are just as passionate as I am about education and our young people and empowering our young people. So we're just thankful that you're on the board serving our community, and all that you are doing for us. We do appreciate that.
Thank you for those kind words, Dr. Hutchings. And ladies, thank you. As Dr. Hutchings said, you represent us so very well. Your thought-provoking comments, your advocacy, your student engagement, keep on doing what you're doing, because you truly are our future. So with that being said, we want to thank everyone for participating. Please email studentreps@acps.k12.va.us to share your thoughts and stories. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, we do have another community conversation on the Identity Project tomorrow. It'll be at 6 o'clock, and it'll be on Zoom and Facebook Live. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.